Good morning, everybody, and welcome to everybody's favorite youth baseball podcast, Clearing the Bases, featuring Coach Jimmy, Phil, and Jerry. I'm David Friedman, and I want to thank you for coming along this journey with us. And a special Happy New Year, as it's our first show of 2022. How we doing this morning, Coach?
Doing good, Dave. Yeah, Christmas, New Year's, just rolling by.
Yeah, it's amazing. The more things change, the more they stay the same. We're still in these quarantine lockdowns and masks and all that stuff. Hopefully this will be relieving soon, but as of right now, not looking too positive for the first couple of weeks at least.
Well, you know, Dave, that goes against all of our principles that we have. Okay, we're supposed to look at a new year. Everything is positive. Let's put that behind us and move forward.
Yes, obviously staying positive, big thing, but life does come crashing down on us sometimes. It makes it tough, but good.
The truth is the truth, right?
Good calling out on me there. So, all right. So what do you got going on these days with the new year coming up?
Well, we start out Thursday heading out to the ABCA convention in Chicago, which you know is me being like a kid in a candy store. I look forward to it every year. So believe it or not, it may be January. You don't think much about baseball, but this is a busy time of the year for me between going to the convention, starting up with the travel organization, which is now the Renegades Travel Baseball Organization, getting that going, starting up some stuff with the high school. It's a busy time of year.
Oh, I'm sure. I know for myself, I haven't been able to attend yet, but yeah, the not really winter workouts, but just some calisthenics and getting kids into physically working out weights and whatnot. That's started up with our school as well. I'm hoping to be able to jump in soon. My work schedule hasn't been cooperating with that yet, but hopefully someday soon. But so you got the big convention coming up, assuming that we can get out there and all. What types of things you have on your agenda?
Well, you know, as well as everybody that's been listening to the show, my main focus is to get better with the mental performance side. So, I mean, this year, there's a few mental performance coaches, and they're very good coaches, very famous. Brian Kane, Lauren Johnson, who I believe used to be the mental performance coach of the New York Yankees at one point. I hope I'm correct in saying that. There's another speaker that I would like to go see. He's involved with USA Baseball. His name is Todd Fine. He's going to be doing a presentation on developing a championship culture. I'll go see that. I want to go see another one that's a presentation on running an efficient practice and practice planning, which is something that I do for USA Baseball when we do our community clinics. So I think it would be good to go listen to somebody else, so maybe I can get better at my presentation so I could see how they do theirs and take it from there. Most of the stuff that I go to see outside of that would be, and it's one of the things that I believe a lot of coaches neglect, is outfield play. So I'm always looking for better ways to teach my outfielders. And there is a coach from a high school, I believe it's in California, that's going to be doing a presentation on outfield drills to incorporate in your practices. So that's on my list also. But as you can tell, there's a lot of stuff that you can go. I mean, you can't cover it all. So the good thing about it too is that what the ABCA does is, if you go to the convention, they video all of these presentations. So if you miss one when you get home, pop it up on a computer and it's right there for you. It's beautiful.
Oh, that's excellent. That's awesome. So yeah, the technology, incorporating technology today, just like we try to do with some of our practice stuff. It's good that it's done for these types of conventions so that you can go in and get back. Like you said, I'm sure there's multiple times where there are two things going on at once that obviously just can't be in the two places at once. So yeah, that's exciting. I'm glad. I know I'm happy for you to be able to go. I know, like you said, that you're going to be in heaven out there. Hopefully everything pans out and you can get to all the things that you want. And, hey, maybe you get to meet some of the fans of the show, some of the guys that we've either had on the show or gotten some feedback from or whatnot. I'm sure you'd be interested in that as well.
Well, my first presentation that I'm going to see is more like a round table, and that'll be Thursday night at 9 o'clock. And Coach Anthony Pla is one of the presenters for that, and I'll be sitting there, and then hopefully after his presentation we'll shake hands and say hello, and it's a lot of networking gets done there. So it's again, it's a beautiful thing.
Awesome. Sounds like you should enjoy that tremendously. So for today's show, we are revisiting again. So the last couple of shows, we've had a lot of feedback from the listeners. And as always, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. The show has been growing and growing again. We've got some great partnerships set up, like with Matt Cole from Youth Baseball Coaching, Support Drills and Philosophy on Facebook. And so we get some ideas for shows through that and through some of the other feedback that we get. So on today's show, we wanted to revisit some of the things that we've been talking about. Most recently was about that we're talking about Justin from Sarasota had written in asking about how to better work with the existing board of directors of his local little league, and how to open the eyes up in terms of, hey, what we're doing maybe isn't working, or even if it is working, maybe it could be better. Something you just talked about, even with your level of experience, always looking to grow and learn new things. Unfortunately, a lot of people just in general, not a baseball specific thing, but a lot of people in general, they hit a certain age. Sometimes that age is 15, sometimes that age is in their 20s. And they just feel like they know it. They know what they know, and they want to move on. We're obviously big proponents on continuing to learn and grow and be open to new ideas and looking to better yourself. So that was one of the original concepts that we were talking about. So today's guest, I'm very, very pleased to welcome. His name is Peter Lyons. He's a longtime coach, both Little League and travel ball locally here in the Dutchess County area. He's a big friend of the show. He is currently the president of Fishkill Little League. Welcome to our show, Peter.
Good morning, Dave. Good morning, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on today.
Thanks for coming, Pete.
Thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
pleasure.
So we wanted to talk, had the idea, as Jimmy and I both have been on the board of directors in support roles, never on the executive team or the leadership team. So we thought it might be a great idea to get the perspective of somebody who is the president, had been on the board for a number of years. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your baseball background to start off with, in terms of, I like to ask our guests, when did you first fall in love with the game? And then if you want to just jump up to, you're as an adult, quasi-adult, whatever we are, to what your current position is, and how you got there.
Sure. So I fell in love with the game, and I have vivid childhood memories back to the age of 5 or 6, with my grandmother teaching me how to hit and throw when I was 5, to when I first started playing Little League when I was 6 years old. And interestingly enough, I started playing Little League in Fishkill Little League all those years ago.
Wow.
So the league that I'm president of today is where I got my start in Little League.
Excellent.
And that's an important reason why I'm so involved with this league today. Obviously, I played rec baseball up until I was through 16, 17 years old. So I played both in the town of Wappinger and the town of Fishkill. I finished my Little League career in Wappinger Little League. I did play some high school ball, where I started to give back as an adult. When I got out of college and I was working in the area as an adult, I started in my early 20s giving back and coaching in town of Wappinger Little League with some of the older, I think it was senior league at the time. Did that for a number of years until I moved away. And then when I came back and started raising my family, when 2 of my children were old enough, my son started playing t-ball at 5, and then my daughter started playing softball at 6. I started coaching her softball team, and then joined the board that very year. Came on board as a general member at large, and then eventually became the player agent for a number of years, where I stayed as player agent until I became president 4 years ago. So as president, I'm very fortunate to have great group of people on the team and on the board that is very well rounded. A number of these individuals do have children in the league, but it's a great balance. There's of our 13 board members, I think 6 or 7 of us no longer have children in the league, but have at one point. Interestingly enough, our longest tenured board member was my minor league coach when I was 6 years old.
Wow.
And he has been with the league all this time. He's not left his service to our organization, and he's a wealth of knowledge, and just really appreciate his and the others who no longer have children in the league staying on board and continuing to help shape the product that we put on the field.
I would say right off the bat, Pete, the impressive thing to me is the fact that, Dave and I talk about the sense of community and staying involved with the community and helping the community. The fact that you played in the Fishkill Little League and then as an adult came back to help the league, to me, says it all. That is, to me, the basis of youth baseball and Little League.
It is. I agree. And one thing to note, so my son, I did mention my son, he has not played. He played through his 12 year of Fishkill Little League. My daughter played softball for 2 years. She gave it a shot, moved on to some other sports at that point. So I've been president. This will be my 3rd year as president without my son or any children in the league. And I was fortunate enough to live in the area where my kids could play Fishkill Little League, where I played when I was younger. But to give back still is really important, not only for giving back to the community, but to the league that helped shape my passion for baseball.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the fact that you're saying about half of your board members are in that position of not having kids in there, I think that speaks volumes for what you guys are doing, because it takes away, again, not to bring too much negativity into this conversation, but I know back from the day when I was involved in it, a lot of the criticism of the board was them doing things for their own gain, which generally would translate back to for their kids' gain. And, taking that argument away from things, I think probably helps things run a little smoother.
It absolutely does, Dave. I've been there while my son was playing. I've heard some of those things. I've taken on some of those lumps, but it really is a testament to the other members of the board that of their commitment. Obviously, we want parent involvement. I'm not saying that we don't want any parents involved. We need them to survive as a league. We're a 100% volunteer-run organization. None of us are paid. We're a 501c3 not-for-profit. And, we have a community responsibility to be there for any child in this community that wants to figure out if they could like the game, want to learn the game, or just, are there to have fun, to play and meet new kids, right? And that's the thing about it for me is the responsibility to the community. And we have this responsibility to really provide this venue for kids of all types. Maybe there's some that have some advanced skills at their age, right? And they might be a little bit better at the game than others, but to, teach them the fundamentals of the game, but also of, the ability to meet new friends, the ability to spend time with others in your community of various backgrounds that you don't necessarily see when you go to school, right? It creates friendships. There are people that I met when I was 6 and 7 years old because of Little League that I'm still friends with today. And I hope to provide that same opportunity as does my board, to children of our community. So that's an important thing for me.
What really interests me is the fact that there's a gentleman that's on your board that when you were 6, he was coaching you then, and he's still on the board. Not that the other things that we're going to talk about don't interest me, but that to me is really special. He's been on that board for a long time. I mean, and what I'm really curious to know is, what has his role been?
So in addition to being on our board all this time and an active member of the league all of this time, he has done everything from umpire. He is a certified umpire, but does not umpire any longer. He's also the district administrator of Dutchess County of District 17 Little League. He has been that for quite some time. He has played so many different roles, from vice president of baseball, treasurer for decades. He was treasurer. He was director of umpires. He has umpired, runs a volunteer umpire clinic so we can get new kids and, new, people who are out of playing the game, 15, 16 years old and they may play school ball, but we have an umpire clinic that he runs. Even though he's no longer director of umpires. Today, he is responsible for fundraising and sponsorships, and he has been doing that for a number of years for us. And he's very good at it. He knows a lot of people in the community, a lot of businesses, and he's fabulous at getting businesses and other community groups involved with our league. He's very good at that. Now, mentioning him, I have to mention another gentleman who's been involved at a senior level of the league for, decades as well. Not as long as this first gentleman I mentioned, but he has not had a child in the league for at least the last 15 years. And he, prior to being vice president of baseball and default head groundskeeper of our facilities, he's also been our treasurer for the last 4 or 5 years. So he wears a number of hats, and again, it's people like him, like the two of them, that are a testament to what drives our league today. What drives the volunteering of our league today. It's the roles they play are critical. We would not survive without them.
That's fantastic. I mean, to have people that I'm going to make an assumption here when you're talking about this type of tenure. And going through there must have been multiple presidents and vice presidents in the time that these people have been working with the board. I'm going to assume they're the type of people that you want on the board, that they are willing to open to new ideas and change with the times and that type of thing, because that is really, really important with the status of where Little League and all youth town organized baseball is in this day and age.
Absolutely, Dave. One of the things that I think has really helped is that the newcomers to the board over the last 5 to 7 years, including myself for many, many years, look to these two gentlemen for guidance. And hey, this isn't your first rodeo. We've seen this issue in the past. How has the league handled this? And they command a tremendous amount of respect from the entire board, myself included. And one of the things is that they're very on board with the mindset that I share with them and they share with me. Is there's no such thing as, oh no, this is the way we do things here. Okay. There is no such mindset as that. And that is something that when I became president, I asked the board and those that want to be a part of the board that they had to share in that mindset with me. Because if they didn't, we would go down a path that likely would not allow us to adapt and to grow. And one of the things that is absolutely one of my long-term goals for the organization is to reverse the trend that, and I'm going to say Little League, and I'm not using that as a generic term, I'm using that as the brand right now, that Little League has seen since its, I would say, peak of registered players back in 1997. There were 3 million children in the United States that played Little League branded baseball or softball. And there has been since then an approximate 3% annual decline to 2020 numbers in the United States of 1.9 million players. That's
Wow.
a 37% drop from 1997 to 2020.
Wow.
And we can get into lots of thoughts as to why that's happening. There's been a significant decline across the board, although people don't necessarily see that, with all of youth sports, with children ages 6 to 12, participating in a sport of some kind. Used to be, as of 2018, 38% of kids between the ages of 6 and 12 played a team sport on a regular basis. And that's down from 45% in 2008. That's across all sports, all youth sports. That is not just baseball. That's inclusive of all youth sports. And I'm passionate about changing that course for our league. Now, there are, some of our leagues, well, all of our leagues are defined by boundaries, right? That we're allowed to recruit players from. And recruit, doesn't necessarily go along with the word Little League or the brand Little League, but we go out and market our product. My board has been very open-minded about, moving away from the traditional ways we market our product. We send out emails. We go by email lists of families that have moved into the area over the last couple of years, right? That seems to have helped, because as COVID has driven people out of the cities, the larger cities, right? We have seen, urban sprawl up to this area, and we have seen those mailing lists in our boundary areas that we buy, and mail a postcard to let those households know, hey, welcome to the area. You have a child in your household between this age and this age. This is the service we offer for baseball and softball. If you're interested in signing your child up, please contact us, right? That's something new we started a couple of years ago. And that has drawn some people into the league.
How much would you say, by doing that marketing campaign, let's say, on a percentage, about how many of the players are actually coming to you?
We've signed 25 players up in the last 2 years just because of mailing postcards to new households.
Okay.
Okay.
And roughly how many people are on that list, roughly?
It's about 3% that we acquired.
So that's what I was going to ask. So why don't we define for the size of this league, because obviously everything's relative. If you had 10,000 kids in the league, then that's a drop in the bucket. But so where's your standing about for the league?
So at our peak in 2018, we had just over 400 kids, and we're down to just under 300 in 4 years. Now,
wow.
Some of that is COVID related.
Right.
We absolutely have some families, even this past year, that were not comfortable. Most people have seemed to, and it could be due to the seasonality factor in our area of the way COVID has been, but most people have not seemed to let that impact them. But it's been about a 20% drop since the 2 COVID years. Majority of that we look at is the feedback has been because of COVID.
Right. That's expected. So,
Yes.
All right. So your mailing, then you're talking about more than 5% increase, of additions on, which is, I think that's fantastic. That's obviously beneficial.
So that's one of the areas that the board has been open-minded. And again, we encourage all of our board members, because we have a well-rounded board. We have people who specialize in technology. There's a few of us, myself included. Then there's marketing, there's real estate, there's construction, right? There's business operations. So some of these are parents whose kids are in the league, and some of these are some of these long tenured parents whose kids no longer are in the league, right? So to me, that's an important facet, is having a well-rounded board. Now, I didn't go out and seek that. We were fortunate to get that over the years, but we're trying to leverage the real life experience that people have, and bringing that to their roles in the board. So we don't say, oh, well, let's take the technology guy and put him on marketing, right? No, we say, okay, look, Mr. Smith, you specialize in marketing. Would you take our marketing spot on the board? And absolutely. So that alignment as well has helped tremendously. There's some other things that we're doing to, again, not, oh, this is the way we've always done things. Free T-ball. I have been passionate about growing our base through, encouraging families so that there's no financial barrier whatsoever. Let's introduce our community the children of our community to T-ball with no barriers that can get in the way, right? Free T-ball. And that we have seen be successful in that, again, in 2017, 2016, we had 90 to 95 T-ball players playing in our league, and they were 4 and 5 years old. Our requirement is you must be 4 years old by April 1st of the season you're going to play. So if you turn 4 after, unfortunately, then we say no, you'll have to wait till next year. It doesn't matter size, doesn't matter ability. We do it for a number of reasons. It's really to keep the kids be able to let them focus to the most that we can. But free T-ball has been something that's been very successful for us. We're in our second year now of doing that. Our first year was very successful in turning some things around with regards to T-ball numbers. And our goal is to get to 12 8-children teams. We put 8 T-ball players on a team. And what we do with T-ball is really 2 things. They meet twice a week during the season. The season will run from early April through end of June. We don't stop that because, around All-Star time, because they're not affected by All-Stars. So we basically give them almost 3 full months, April, May, June, where one night a week, they have an hour and a half of clinics where they rotate through a number of stations where we teach them how to hit off a tee. We teach into a net. We teach them how to put a glove on properly. We teach them how to receive a ball properly. We teach them how to slide properly. We have special sliding mats, safety sliding mats that we put down on the grass that they use so that we can really teach them to slide on any surface. And all of this comes from Little League's, kind of T-ball handbook and kind of T-ball program and how to put on and facilitate a T-ball program. So once parents see that, and we put that out there for parents to see ahead of time so they know what they're getting into. So one night is a clinic, and another night is a 3-inning simulated game where we have each team have all 8 players bat, right? We don't keep score, we don't keep outs, and we're constantly rotating each inning the children in different positions, right? So that they understand. We don't have a catcher, but we do have somebody in the pitcher position next to an adult who is there guiding them because they're much closer to the ball, right? But otherwise, we have the other 7 positions in the field filled with the pitcher and an adult there. And then we have adults scattered, certified, board approved, background checked coaches that are out there in the field with their players, guiding them, instructing them along the way when a ball comes their way. And, each runner gets to advance a base so that everybody eventually comes around to score. But it really kind of walks them through the motions of a simulated game.
So this is something that screams at me. Something that we talk about all the time seems like what you're doing is you're, number one, starting at the very basic level. You're giving them that instruction that they need, at a very early age. And more importantly, you're trying to get them to love the game.
Yes. Loving the game. And this is something we talk about as a board, is what our mission is. Yes, we want to teach kids the game, but we want to teach them to or give them the opportunity to love the game. You can't teach someone necessarily to love the game. That has to be their own experience, come from that. But we want to put them in an environment where they're having fun, they're learning, and in some cases they're meeting new friends or playing with their friends, right? But all of that circles around player development. And people laugh sometimes when they hear us talk about player development at 4 and 5 years old. But what I just walked you through is the very beginning building blocks of player development. So, and when I come back at people often and I say, listen, if you don't start with the fundamental approach at that age, it's like building a building, right? You can't just start building a building on the 3rd floor and think the building's going to sustain itself. It won't. It needs its foundation to be built upon. And you have to start that. We owe it to those parents who are bringing those children to us to start that at that age. We are. So the structured program we have does a very good job at that.
Yeah, and that's great. And I think one of the other things to put out there is you're making the program free, which from the parent standpoint, obviously, I mean, even more so the last 2 years with how crazy things have been out there economically. But even before then, if you're a single parent or you're a young couple that with a young child and you're kind of struggling just to get through, do you want to invest, even though Little League and I'll use that generically, Little League, Calric and Pony League, whatever. I mean, they're generally not high expenses, but any expense sometimes might be too much. So I think that's a great idea to help get these kids in, because if it's something where, hey, I have no idea, obviously you have no idea at that point, is your kid going to want to come back a second time? Is it going to be a fight every week to get them? So if you take away that financial barrier, I think that has to have grown your numbers significantly.
It has. And we're expecting even bigger numbers this year. Our goal is that by 2024, we are well past the 96 players from our from within our territory, our boundaries that we can draw from, and we've not set a limit to that. Something else that we've done with regards to our commitment to again building our base. Our hopes are that this is an investment in ourselves. We have to pay insurance for those players, right? We have to pay for a t-shirt and a hat that we give those players. But that's the league as a not-for-profit spending our money that we have to reinvest in ourselves, right?
It's giving back.
It's giving back. It's giving back to the community, to our league, with the intention of trying to use that as a building our base, because we know, our goal is to retain 40% of every new T-ball player that signs up and stays with us for the season. If we can retain 40%, we're happy as part of our feeder system, right? We're happy because not everybody joins us at the T-ball age. Some kids like to pick it up later in life. Sometimes they're 6, 7, 8. Some kids don't start till they're 10. That creates different challenges from a development perspective, because you have to assess and then a baseline of where they're at, and so we place them in the right spot. But again, our focus league wide across all of our divisions for baseball and softball is about player development first. Winning isn't even second. Winning is 4th or 5th. Teaching the fundamentals of of Little League, having the kids have fun, player development. And meeting, giving back to the community and meeting new friends. Those are all much higher in priority than winning in terms of
you actually just stole my thunder a little bit, because from what I'm hearing, yes, we're trying to make it fun, which is our number one goal at the young ages. But as they start moving up, so my next question is, number one, how much emphasis do you put on winning, which you kind of touched on just a little bit? And number two, what do you do to create parity amongst the teams in your league so that, there is no team that's stronger than the other?
Yeah. So that, there's a couple of things we do, and that varies at each age level. So we do evaluations. We do player evaluations every year. We don't call them tryouts. We call them evaluations, especially at the younger ages, because you tryouts to me are something you either make a team or you don't make a team. Everybody makes a team. Okay. Our goal is to evaluate so that we can have balance, competitive balance, when it does get towards some of the older ages. Right. And I'll touch on that more in a moment. But we also at the younger age groups. So for T-ball, if you want to come play T-ball at 4, we welcome you. But we let you know when you sign your child up who's 4, they're playing T-ball again at 5. The worst thing you can do is rush Susie or Johnny out of T-ball either into baseball or softball before they've had that year or two. So if you want to sign them up at 4, that's fine. And it's not a money grab because we're not charging you for it. We're giving them the opportunity at 4 to come in and play, but we're letting you know now. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Feel free to do what you want with your time this year. Come back to us when you're 5, but you're going to play 4 and 5 when you play T-ball if you sign up as a 4-year-old. Once you turn league age 6, we then have evaluations, and we get evaluations for all players every year. So we bring them together, typically 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, and we look at them on a field or in some tunnels for 3 to 4 hours, and we assess where they are and how we should place them. And we break them up so that there's no, oh, this team is stacked, and this team is, oh, well, they're kind of a more developmental team. Every team is the developmental team. Okay. At 6 years old, no one's going to some, there's no scout teams, referring to your last podcast and some of the stuff we're not doing that. Right. We do capture some metrics in the ability to look at, how fast kids are. We look at the coaches, evaluate them from the ability to swing off a tee, right? The ability to receive a ball in the field, the ability to throw a ball, right? Those are the types of things that we're looking at to make sure that, well, we're not going to go put a team together of kids who all need help throwing a baseball. We're going to balance that out because every kid at the age of 6 needs help throwing a baseball, right? 6, 7, 8. So from a younger group perspective, we capture a certain set of metrics. And again, I'm using that word loosely. It's, running down to first base. It's, how well they're hitting a ball off of the tee. Are their mechanics all over the place? Are they swinging with one hand? Are they swinging, properly for a 6 to 8-year-old? And again, I'm using those words loosely. And then as you move up,
you also justified it by saying, are they swinging properly for a 6 to 8-year-old?
Yes.
Okay, so you're looking at this, you're putting their swing into perspective.
Yes, you have to. You absolutely have to.
Absolutely.
Again, because now we're moving to that next level of foundation, right? So now T-ball has built the foundation. Now we're going to start building the first floor. Okay. And that's our coach pitch type division that we have. And then instructional builds on top of that. So with coach pitch, it's all coach pitch. And then even there are some kids at the end of coach pitch that are showing a desire to pitch and the ability to pitch. And towards the end of the season, we introduce that to some of those kids that have expressed a desire and interest. Instructional builds on that. Instructional starts out with, okay, we're going to go ahead and start. Everyone's going to hit off the tee. Everyone's going to start with coach pitch, and we introduce pitching after the first week or two from the players themselves, right? And we give them a certain ability to throw so many pitches per batter, and after 4 or 5 pitches, if they can't get the batter either on base or out, then the coach comes in and finishes the at bat, and then the pitcher goes right back in. But the pitcher stays there to field. So from that group, we evaluate things a little bit differently. We look at the same things, but from a different perspective. And then again, we do the same thing as we move up. Once you get to, 9 through 12, then things change a little bit. We make sure we look at you from a fielding, catching, throwing, running, hitting perspective. And during those evaluations, we literally keep, every player is looked at, 1 through 5, if you will. And then an overall composite is put together for every kid that participated in the evaluation. And then when the managers get together to select the players, we make sure that the teams are going to be competitively balanced so that we don't fall into that trap of what you said earlier. Hey, how do you show one team that is really, really, I think you used the word stacked, and then one team that, isn't, and how do we avoid that? So it's through this evaluation process, the collection of information that, we do all that. So the coaches turn their data in, we provide a composite of all the players put together, and then we have a competitive balanced selection process to make sure that the teams aren't, lopsided.
So we have the developmental stages, and you just explained how you keep parity amongst your team so that no team is overpowering another team, and all of this stuff is great. I love it. Definitely developing the players, making it fun, giving the opportunities that you've discussed is, with the free T-ball, that's great. All of the community involvement and people from the community are helping your league. This is all great stuff, and I'm happy to hear it. But I'm going to go to now. What are you doing to educate your coaches?
Yeah, so it's a great question. A couple of years ago, Little League identified a challenge with not enough focus on developing coaches. So we talk about developing the players, and that's great that we have a certain mindset of developing them, but we have to have a common mindset of developing coaches. And when you had, I think it was Matt Cole on a couple of months ago, he was coaching coordinator from his Little League in his area. And that position of coaching coordinator is something Little League introduced a number of years ago as a required board position for every chartered Little League, because they realized that it was critical for the continued development and growth of the players to also do that for the coaches. So one of the things that we're doing, and we started on this last year, and we have one person involved in this right now, is we are committed to training and developing our coaches to get them New York State certified within 3 years of them joining our program. And that's a lot to ask for a parent, right? It's an absolute lot, but we are again investing in our league because we believe that having certified coaches in our league will speak volumes over time, not only with the things we talked about for developing the players, because that will obviously trickle down and they'll be the people developing the players, the coaches, but it's also a testament to the community that we take this responsibility very seriously. So we have one individual that signed up and has started going through the process. And that's not an overnight thing. That's a journey, right? That is a journey to develop. And it's really the people coming out of T-ball where we've been successful in getting people interested. We have 2 other gentlemen who are interested that I'm hoping we're going to sign up this year in this certification program so that they're New York State certified coaches. And again, it's a 3-year process that we've kind of laid out for them because of the amount of time it takes. And, obviously they have real jobs. But these are parents, 2 dads and 1 mom, who see that their child has taken to the sport, likes the sport, and wants to be involved in that capacity. So I'm hoping the other 2 will agree to that this year to join the certification process. So that's kind of the long-term thing that we're doing. On the short term, filling that coach's coordinator position, this is kind of a double-edged sword, is I've talked to a number of high school coaches, college assistant coaches that I would love to be in that coordinator role. The problem is I need it during the spring primarily when they're in their busiest time frames.
Right.
So who better to have in that role than a high school coach or assistant coach, or, even I'll even say, and I haven't used this word yet, I'll even say a real experienced travel coach, right? But I'm talking someone who's also coached high school or college as well, right? Not just, I've coached travel ball for 10 years at the youth level. That doesn't necessarily make you, the right coach for that type of role. But filling that coach's coordinator role with the right person, to me, is critical for the short term, the near term, for continuing to coach and train and develop our coaches. One thing we did this past year is, and it's another way to bring people forward to volunteer, right? That's hard enough as it is. Getting people in this day and age to volunteer, and I don't know if it's COVID related. We've had the problem prior to COVID, but it's even harder now to get a volunteer to come on the field and coach, to go help run our concession stand. But keeping it focused on coaching right now, what we did was, for those that did come forward and say, look, hey, I want to help, but I don't have the most experience, we said, not a problem. So a number of us who have coached for years would go out and help run clinics with them. But we hired a local training facility in the area who has certified baseball coaches, number of experienced high school, some high school type coaches, some players themselves, a lot of them college players, and they were back for the season. And they would actually come to our practices and our games and help the coaches. So they would actually coach, they would run the practices and teach the coaches alongside while they were teaching the kids. And that went over extremely well this year. The feedback from the parents was enormous, and you really could see their appreciation and recognition of how important that was. And even from some of the spouses, like, oh wow, I've seen my husband just grow so much in the last 2 months, and he's really excited about this now. He gets it now. He knows how to, instead of being timid about getting to a practice and not knowing what to do, he's actually doing some practice planning ahead of time before he gets to practice and laying things out. So we're going to continue to do that in the short term, over the next 3 or 4 years, while we grow our own base of certified coaches. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that everything you just said is great stuff, but I know that going to be a New York State certified coach, like you said, it's a long haul, and I think it's going to take a special person to do that. Like you said, there's just a lot involved to do it.
Yeah, it is absolutely a I don't want to call it a stretch goal, because it's something we're really committed to doing, but it's a partnership between us and the parent. It really is, and we're, like I said, last year was our first year. We got one person to sign up. I was thrilled. Again, we're funding it. We're paying for it, and that's this is something we hope works out in the long term.
Well, it seems like it'll have to. But so one thing, just a couple of things that you mentioned there that I wanted to touch on. So you're talking about New York certified coaches. Do you know what organization that's through? We can give it out to our listeners. So if it's something that they're interested in doing, or I know, Jimmy has also talked in the past about USA Baseball has their programs and certificate courses. So what's kind of the starting point with that? Where can they go to see that?
So there's a couple of things that it's a combination of both National Federation of High Schools and USA Baseball. There's a couple of courses we're having them take from each. Ideally, it would be NFS, National Federation of High School certified, is technically what they would be, even though that is a far overreach from what they need to be doing with youth. It'll cover everything from the psychological aspect of the coaching, right? Some of the classes that are covered there, as well as some of the fundamental classes that are covered. So it does seem like an overreach, but we have felt that in combination with a number of USA baseball clinics would be the best way to go.
I know the NFHS they have two levels of certification. One of them is, I'm trying to remember, one is certified interscholastic coach, and I believe the other one is accredited. One is more in depth than the other. So I'm assuming that you would be going with the accredited.
The accredited one, yes.
Okay.
So all good stuff, all very, very important in terms of everything we've been talking about, building the foundation of the players and the coaches, because they need their foundation as well. So let's talk a little bit again about going back to just the general league setup and how the board of directors works. So I know for your league and Fishkill Little League, you guys combine under one umbrella, basically, both the baseball and the softball programs. The programs that Jimmy and I came up through, they were completely separate. Like it was, and I actually found it odd because I think growing up, the programs were basically combined. But when I joined up with the league, I was surprised how separate the programs were. There was almost no communication between the two, even though we shared fields and facilities and whatnot. So you want to talk a little?
They had separate boards, if I remember right. It was it's
yeah,
like two different leagues.
Yeah, it was completely separate. There was there wasn't a oversight between the two. So if there was a conflict on using a field for baseball versus softball or whatnot, it could be a big to do. So how does your league work within that frame, Peter?
Sure, Dave. So we are combined, and we find that it actually helps alleviate a number of the things you just talked about. We have a vice president of softball. That position is a peer to the vice president of baseball, and they work with the same treasurer, the same marketing team. They work with the same director of umpires, field scheduling. All of it together works in harmony for our league. And again, we find that we've talked about separating them before, but we found that the registration system, all that stuff is it's cohesive, it's together, and we find that it's more successful to be together than it is not to be together. From at least that's our findings.
It seems like it would have to be. And like I said, I found ours to be absolutely ridiculous. It had to cost more. You had to have more people volunteering. It seems like that has to be the better way to go.
Yeah. In addition, chartering fees would be different. It would actually cost you more money to do it that way.
Sure.
Than it would just from the economies of scale on uniforms and insurance and et cetera. We're better off as one charter and one organization than we are two. That's our findings. Somebody may have a good reason somewhere that's not the case, but for our environment, playing the same fields, concession stand, all of that, it works out best if we're one cohesive unit. So along the lines of softball, there's been one thing that has always kind of just really bothered me in terms of not really understanding it the way I understand travel baseball. So with the travel baseball world in our area, at least, we left Saturdays alone in terms of, hey, Saturday is for Little League. It's for rec ball. Okay. So travel would always schedule their stuff on Sundays, when there was overlapping seasons. And occasionally a kid would miss, there were some kids who played travel and they would miss a week or so, sometimes during the week, they might miss a game or a practice. But it really depended on the situation. For softball, we have found that it really impacts enrollment. And I'm not alone in that. I talked to all of our other leagues, all the other presidents in Little League, and they're like, yeah, you hear everything from the range of, oh, the travel ball softball coach doesn't want you playing rec ball because they're not going to teach you things my way, and they're not going to teach it the softball way, or you're going to be playing with pitchers who are going to throw off your swing because they're going to be slower. And I said, well, all of those things exist in baseball, and we don't seem to have as much of an issue on the baseball side where players just aren't signing up as we do on the softball side. So I did a little bit more digging over the last year. And what I come to find out is that unlike baseball, where they play everything on Sundays typically in the spring, softball plays it on Saturdays. And it's a direct conflict with the rec ball schedule. So I turned to our board and I said, I have an idea. We're not going to play softball on Saturdays anymore. They want to play Friday nights and they want to play on Sundays. Any objections? And they were like, if that's going to bring softball enrollment back, we're all for it. So in the fall this year, we made that change. And we went to the other leagues in our district, and we said, listen, we understand from another number of these different travel programs and their families that if we don't schedule games on Saturdays, but we do it Fridays and Sundays, and then a little bit during the week, they're going to play. And we did it. And we had a 200% increase in our softball program in the fall.
Wow.
Okay.
Awesome.
200%. Now, let's put it in perspective. How many kids is that? All right. So we went from having 2 softball teams to having 6 softball teams.
This is a specific age group. This is what age group?
This is all across. This is 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 12.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Right. So we're going to continue that into the spring. And those parents have committed, yeah, hey, we're back in the springtime. Right. And we're working now with our other leagues in the district to open their eyes to this and see that, hey, this is the way that we're bringing softball back for us. And here's the key. It's the kids who are playing travel ball coming back is good for the entire league because it's good for all the players. I believe that having players to be able to play with a variety of caliber, it's a very good thing to do for player development and to make sure that, teams aren't lopsided. We're not stacking one team, right? Each age group will have a balanced set of teams. It worked out really well in the fall. I was very, very happy with it. The board was happy with it. And another example of how we're willing to look ourselves in the mirror and say, what's working, what's not working, and how do we adapt?
Yeah. So, I think it's great from a number of standpoints. One of the things I've talked about on the show plenty of times in the past, so forgive me guys for repeating myself, but it's one of the things I think is most important when we talk about player development and the relationship between all-stars and regular league or travel and regular league is the opportunities for those kids that are not the hands down superstars. So in other words, the kid who playing travel maybe only gets to play 3 innings in left field every game or whatnot is probably good enough to be starting shortstop on the town team, or might be the number 2 pitcher on the town team, but never gets a chance to pitch for travel team and things like that. So from the standpoint where we want to talk about keeping the kids' interest, which should be the most important thing in all of this, keeping the kids interested, to me, I think that's enormous.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it also has to do with repetition, right? Because we know the game, revolves around getting as many reps as you can. So like Dave, to your point, you have a travel ball player that's not getting much playing time, not getting many reps on that travel team. Well, now they're playing rec ball. They're going to get more reps and they're going to get better. So it's a great tool developmentally.
Absolutely. And I mean, I went through this with my own son with the relationship between travel and town, which we can get into a little bit. But more on this topic is I want to talk about from your position, Pete, as the president, but just the board's attitude altogether. One of the issues that Jimmy and I saw, and we talked about on the last show, when the environment around you is changing, you can either agree to adapt and survive, or you could try to hold back the tide that's rushing against you. And unfortunately, a lot of the people that we had dealt with at the time, they were in the position of travel bad. And so, to hell with those guys, we're going to do our thing. Well, that's a pretty good recipe for watching your league shrink down. And like you said, you could say, well, we can go to all the travel programs and say, hey, stop playing games on Saturdays, or do the thing that makes more sense, which is, okay, let's stop scheduling games on Saturdays that we have to keep rescheduling, or our numbers are just going to plummet down.
Dave, the way I looked at this and I approached this with my board, and maybe the difference here is that I'm the one who's leading the charge of being open-minded, and I don't want to take the credit for it. My entire board deserves credit for having this mentality. They do. There's no naysayers. There's no, we are trying to be as open-minded as we can be to what's worked in the, what's worked in the past. Can we tweak it a little bit? What's not working anymore? Let's think of it this way. And this is what I said to my board. We used to drive horse and buggies. If somebody wants to still drive a horse and buggy today, that's great. People will pass you by because they're driving motorcycles and vehicles that can take you farther a lot quicker.
Right.
Okay. So go ahead and drive your horse and buggy if you want. Let's see how successful you'll be. And nobody gave resistance. Nobody wanted to live in the past. So maybe I'm lucky. Maybe we're fortunate. Maybe it could be just, I don't know. But I believe that in order to survive, like any business does, not just a not-for-profit youth rec organization, you have to be willing to adapt. And I believe having business-minded people on my board is why they're so open to fostering change. I really do.
Well, it also has to do with leadership too, Pete, because let's face it, you're the guy at the top. You're the one that everybody's looking at. So if you don't have that perspective that you have where let's try and make things better. Hey, what can we do about this? How can we fix this? That's all leadership. So, people are looking at you saying, okay, great. Pete is willing to change. Let me come up with some ideas. Maybe I can help. Whereas Dave's experience and my experience has been the exact opposite. The guy at the top was the guy saying, hey, shut up and do what I said. And that's, again, we've said it before, it's a recipe for disaster. And
it is.
That's where that's where that league is going.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
So that's great. And we touched on it a little bit here. So let's talk about that balancing. So you as president of the league, but then also being involved with the league itself as a regular coach during the season, as if you're involved with all stars, because we want to expand this out, not just you, obviously throughout the listenership that we have. So how do you balance out? I guess it would come down to fairness of if there is an issue in the league, you're the president, but you're also a coach in the league. Again, generally speaking, the number of volunteers, not great. So most of the times we have to wear multiple hats when we're in this, because not just as a president, but even as any board member, because you were on the board, we said about 12 years. This will be your 12th year on the board. So you've been dealing with this for many years as a coach and a board member, as a coach and a president, as the president, and trying to be involved with All Stars if your kids are on All Stars. How do you balance that out so that you're not getting the issues, not that you're not getting the issues, but you're not getting the complaints about, oh, he's making decisions based on what's best for his kid. He's making decisions for what's best on his team. He's got the easiest schedule, whatever. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And yes, these are all prominent concerns and issues. And I, having spoken of the two gentlemen who have been longstanding board members, I leaned on them a little bit for this. One in particular, who isn't the district administrator, and I'll get to that as to why in a moment. So, yes, I have coached my son, and I've coached while I was on the board and while I was president. It's not because I had said, oh, I'm coaching. It's because we haven't had people to necessarily coach. People couldn't make the commitment to get out of work at certain times every day, guaranteed. I'd have people who say, well, I can get there occasionally. I can do this occasionally, but I can't be there. And we had, at the 2019, the last year my son played, we had 5 teams. We had 5 coaches, 5 managers who could say, make the commitment. Yes, I could be a coach. I had the board vote and approve me as a coach. Now, somebody could say, well, that's just a rubber stamp vote. And I said, no, guys, look, this is important. You need to make sure that, you're taking into consideration whether I can vote coach in the regular season. And what I insisted upon was that because every one of the 5 coaches, the managers, each had a son playing travel ball, we basically all we had to take our kid, right, at the top, right? So everybody picked their kid in a certain round. You had to. But then I came up with the idea of, let's put 5 numbers in a hat as far as the draft goes, right? And I would pick last of numbers out of a hat as to what order we would pick in. So it was totally randomized. Who picks first, who picks last. And as crazy as it is, everybody picked a number. I got the last number out of the hat. The secretary handled all of it. I'm sorry, the treasurer handled all of it. And, everybody thought that was fair in terms of draft order, right? We then made sure everybody had the same number of travel players and the same number of non-travel players on a team. We made sure of that. We went through the season. It was a very fun season. No one team dominated the other, and kids had a blast. The kids had a blast, excuse me. And I thought overall it was a very successful season from a regular season perspective. Successful in kids advanced, they grew as ball players. They lost games, they won games, and at the end of the day, the feedback from the parents was very positive. So to me, those were all measurements of a successful season, right? All-Stars came around, and we had 2 coaches who's were going on vacation. Their kids weren't going to be eligible to play, and they said, I can't commit. And then it came down to there's 3 of us who were available, but 2 of the gentlemen absolutely said, look, I'll coach. I am not going to manage the team. Okay. And I said, well, then there's a process that we have to go through for this. And Little League requires, in order for a president to manage an all-star team, every single coach in that division has to sign a letter from the president that says, I don't have the ability to commit time to managing the team. And then the district administrator, who is also a board member, they have to approve it. And then it has to go out to Eastern Region, and then Eastern Region has to approve it. And only once they approve it does that allow me to be the quote unquote all-star manager. And that's at any age bracket, right? So I just can't say, okay, I'm president of the league, I'm managing this team. I can't do that. Or I'm coaching this team. Can't do that.
So you went through the correct steps.
Yes.
And you did what you were supposed to do. You had the letter signed, you sent them to the higher ups, we'll say, and did it the right way. My experience has been that you're probably the one off.
I was going to say overwhelming minority, I think we could say.
I don't believe that, from my experience, and again, I could be totally wrong, but my experience has told me that would never happen. They would do what they wanted to do. The president would take his team and they wouldn't tell anybody. And that's exactly what would happen.
Yeah, look, could I have done that? I guess I could have, but that's not the way that we run the league. It's not. And my board members would hold me accountable for that. So in the end, people could have filed a complaint with Little League. They could have done a number of things, and it could have gotten our league in trouble. I just, that's not the way I want this league run. It's just not,
Well, I can tell you that there were instances, and I wish I could remember what they were, where I actually contacted Eastern New York region of Cal Ripken, because that's what we were involved in. And the response I got was basically, we're not going to get involved, is basically what they said. We're not going to get involved. The league does what the league is going to do, basically.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. They don't have the manpower to really have oversight. They don't have the interest. I know what you're referring to, Jimmy, and I remember some things about who our local rep was from Cal Ripken, and it was just somebody to go along to get along type of.
But you want to know something, Dave? I
thing.
went beyond that. I went all the way up to, like I said, to the president of the Eastern New York. Actually, I remember, I'm not going to use his name, but I actually remember his name because while I was the all-star manager, I became somewhat friendly with him. So I had a relationship. So I called him up and said, look, this is what's going on. We need help, to straighten this out. And I was basically told, like I said before, we're not going to get involved. Let the league do what the league's going to do. Almost as if, well, if you don't like him, then vote him out. And I don't want to start getting back into those issues, but that's basically what I was told.
Right.
So it kind of goes back to what we said before about having somebody in that position that's a leader, somebody that knows how to lead and doesn't have any ulterior motives for why he's doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've been coaching now. I mean, I've been president now. This is my third year since my son stopped playing rec ball. He's more focused on playing travel and high school ball now. So I'm not going to force him to play. I'm going to let him, choose his path at this point. I even coached a team 2 years ago. That first year he was out, of 13 and 14-year-olds because I could get nobody to do it. I just couldn't get anybody. And I'm not going to let that be a reason where, here's a bunch of 13 and 14-year-old young men who have a passion for the game. They want to play, but for whatever reason, they didn't make a travel program or their high school team. And you know what? That's okay. We have a responsibility to still provide a home for these young men to play.
Yes.
And that's why I was not going to let that team not play. I took the team.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's I would say it's a rarity. I'm sure it happens a lot more than we hear about because those are not the types of stories that usually get put out there. It's obviously you hear more about the complaints than about the good things that are done. So, something that we talk about doing here, reach out to us, drop us a line. You guys know the contact information for us, clearingthebases@gmail.com. Reach out to us on Twitter at the CTB show. Let us know the things that you see, the positives. Let's focus on the positives that you see in your league, those unsung heroes that are there, the people that are putting in the time and the effort and are trying to do things the right way. It's what we need to keep the sport going. We've had on our friend of the show, Kevin Gallagher, talking about saving the game. There's the rules that we can implement, but it really boils down to the people. Rules can get sidestepped, regulations can get sidestepped and can get manipulated, massaging the gray areas of rules and laws and things. It does boil down to the people, getting the good people involved, getting them set up. We talked a ton this show with Peter about how to get those new people involved at the early stages, giving them the tools, the training, the setting them up to be the certifications to be coaches and things like that. If we don't get new blood into the system, not just players, but volunteers wise, it's only gonna go bad. So these are the things that we need to do. We've seen some uptick in some areas in registrations and in participation, but we need to keep pushing that. We need to get this going in the right direction to keep the game going forward. So that about wraps it up for this week. Really want to thank Peter Lyons for jumping in. He's the president of the Fishkill Little League. If you're in the area and you have kids that play, reach out to him. He's happy to talk to you about any of your topics. If you're interested in joining in with the league, obviously they're looking to grow. They're doing a lot of the things that we talk about that are important to get that going. So it's a great resource for the area. If you're not in the area, I hope that you enjoyed some of the things that we talked about today in terms of what you can do back in your hometown to get your leagues up and running. Again, reach out to us, clearingthebases@gmail.com. Reach out to us on Twitter at the CTB show. Let us know what types of things your leagues are doing that you think are good and helpful. And Pete, really appreciate it. I know everybody's time is valuable. Really appreciate you taking the time out and joining us today.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me. I hope you both have a happy and healthy New Year.
Thanks, Pete. I want to say that I think that you were able to provide a lot of good information for people out there to possibly take a look at and hopefully make changes to their league for the better. Our main goal on this show is always to try and make the game better, make it fun, and develop the players along the way.
So thank you again to all of our listeners. The show has been growing and growing. We cannot thank you enough. We love hearing back from you guys, and we hope that you're enjoying the content. Let us know how things are going, topics for future shows. Always reach out to us. Review and rate on you got the iTunes app, on Spotify, whatnot. It helps us to move up the charts. It helps the show to grow, and hopefully it'll help us to get on continue to get on great guests like we did today with Peter Lyons from Fishkill Little League. And always remember, only two things in life that we can control ourselves at all times. That's our effort and our attitude. Give us 100% effort at all times. Keep a positive mental attitude, PMA, and good things will follow. Final words, Coach?
Yeah, now that we're into the new year, I'm kind of reflecting back a little bit on how the show did last year. We started late March, and I really am still overwhelmed by how well the show has done and how far we've come. And I just really want to say a real heartfelt thank you to everybody that listens to this show, because it means a lot to Dave and I. We can't thank you enough. So again, thank you for the success. It's all on you. And like I usually say, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.